Hello and welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have with us the one and only Tim David, proving once and for all that two first names are better than one, founder of GetSpeakingGigs.com and author of 3 extraordinary books, a former magician turned professional speaker, and father of 3 extraordinaire. Welcome, Tim David. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Majeed. Pleased to be here, excited to be here, and really excited to get into the swing of this new year and this new decade as we're recording this. And got a lot of golden nuggets to share on getting speaking gigs and sort of turning that message that you have or that passion that you have into gigs and into income. So looking forward to it.
Let's dive right into it. Let's say Get Speaking Gigs. Okay, first of all, dude, GetSpeakingGigs.com is perfect.
How is that available?
How is that available?
How was that? I couldn't believe it was like my first attempt. That almost never happens when I'm registering a domain. Thrilled about that.
And it's the perfect phrase because it's exactly what is going through the head over and over and over of the aspiring speaker who says, how do I get speaking gigs? Mm-hmm. So imagine I am full of fire. I want to be the motivational speaker that rocks the house, and I want to get those speaking gigs and those paid engagements and the traveling and the speaking circuit. Where do I even start?
All right. Well, I'll tell you the best advice I ever received and the worst advice I ever received about doing just that. And let me sort of frame this and put this in context that is absolutely my specialty, is sort of the business audience, corporate association audiences. Those higher paid keynote gigs are sort of what I do. But I certainly have helped people in the breakout space and just getting in that place where you get on stage, you deliver your message, and you get a huge check at the end. But you also make a difference and you make an impact during your time with that audience. That's my sweet spot. That's my wheelhouse. That's what I live, breathe, and eat, sleep every single day, is getting those kinds of gigs. So a lot of people say, hey, I want to get some work in the youth market. I want to do youth speaking. Go see Josh Shipp or Grant Baldwin or Jeff Yalden. Or, hey, I want to get, in the religious market. And I want to, well, again, my principles may help you, but the sweet spot is high paid corporate business audiences speaking gigs, either for a paycheck or for income and exposure opportunities. So the worst advice I ever received in the speaking business. I actually just did a post on this because it's been eating me alive, and it's sort of recently come back to me, and I went back and thought that was terrible advice, and it came from a really good source. So right after this book was published right here, this is my first sort of real book that I published. It was through Penguin Random House, and a lot of doors opened up, one of them being a speakers bureau. Reached out to me and said, hey, we love the book. We'd love to represent you. Personal introductions were made through agents and all this other stuff. And I was able to sign a deal, an exclusive deal with one of these, top speakers bureaus that a lot of speakers dream about. So I got him on the phone, and he was, going over everything, and we're talking about this and we're talking about that. But at one point I said, listen, I have an opportunity here to ask one of the head of one of the top speakers bureaus how to get speaking gigs. Like, what is the advice that you have for me? So here's how I phrased the question. Look, you got a lot of speakers. I want to be the most booked speaker that you represent. I am excited. I'm full of fire. I want the most gigs. I want to make us both a lot of money. Listen, and you have experience in this industry. You just tell me what I need to do, and I'm going to go out there and do it. Okay. So whatever it is that I need to do, lay out the plan, give me the advice, give me the nuggets of wisdom, and I'm there. And he said, Tim, it just takes time. It just takes time. And I think that is awful advice. That is, now that I've gone through and I've helped so many other speakers to break in, because that's another passion of mine, is sort of breaking down those barriers to entry in the speaking business. Because there's no reason to have a barrier. There's no reason why you can't go out and get speaking gigs today. There's no reason. I don't care if you don't have a demo video or a website or a business card. It doesn't matter. You can absolutely get started. So this idea of taking time, yes, you do need to do some things, and you do need to do them in order, but that doesn't mean you need to do them slowly. So stop it with this nonsense of, oh, it just takes time and you have to gain experience and you've got to pay your dues. Stop it. This is 2020 now. Things maybe were that way back in the day for this guy, and that's sort of the mindset that he's coming from, but that is absolutely positively no longer the truth. So that worst advice that I received leads me to the best advice that I've ever received. The best way to get speaking gigs is to go out and get speaking gigs. I can't say it any simpler. I can't say it any plainer. The best way to get speaking gigs, paid speaking gigs, is to go out and get speaking gigs. Maybe not paid at first, but you get out there, and because, listen, people hire speakers who either they've seen before or they know someone who has seen before. 88% of speakers who are hired, according to Meetings and Conventions magazine, the people who hire speakers say that we hire speakers we've seen before or we know someone who has seen them before. So now we're talking about getting in front of people and showcasing and doing that as often as you can. And when I heard that, that was the advice. And isn't it funny, sometimes the best advice that you receive is basically a life lesson that you kind of have to learn on your own. You know, it's very difficult for somebody to come along and give you that one sentence of advice that changes your life. That's a rare thing indeed. A lot of these really good pieces of advice are saying things like, oh man, I wish I could have told my younger self this. I'm not sure my younger self would have listened, but that's the advice. Go out and get speaking gigs without your demo video, without your business card or your website or any of that stuff. I don't care if you have letters after your name. I don't care if you've written a book or not. Get out there and get on stages and start getting those speaking gigs. And there is hundreds of organizations that will hire you sight unseen today, right now, to have you come in a few weeks from now to speak to their groups. It may not be glorious. It may not be fancy. It may be the back room at a restaurant with 8 people who are in their 70s. Look, it doesn't matter, right? If you can get your chops, if you can get exposure, because every one of those people in that room knows 200 to 250 other people on average who they can refer you to. But I got to tell you, there's no better way. I've seen a lot of paths, people trying to break into the speaking gig business, and there's no better way than getting out there and getting speaking gigs. Majeed, we could end right there. I don't know what to tell you. Where do you want to go next? What holes do you want to what gaps in that? What questions do you think your listeners would have? Because I think the devil's are in the details for sure.
For sure, and I think that's solid advice. It takes time is not that helpful.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Sit around and wait?
Yeah, exactly. That's not very instructive. Go get speaking engagements seems also quite vague. So we'll break that down a little bit. But I'll point out what I liked the most about it is you mentioned all of the things that people work on that are not actually getting speaking gigs, like let me print some business cards and let me redesign my logo and redesign my website and
start a YouTube channel,
rehearse my speaking skills. And and I talk to people all the time that come to me with, just the most complicated guru business with all of the bells and whistles, but 0 clients and 0 speaking engagements. And, the conversation quickly goes to, have you talked to anybody about speaking to their audience yet? So,
well, a lot of times they don't know who to talk to. They don't know where to go. They don't know about these opportunities.
That's it. So let's go there. So, I'll pick a topic like leadership for corporate, for example. Let's say I have lots of corporate leadership experience. I'm an HR executive with a different view on things, and I think I could really help organizations improve their leadership. And I got some great stories, and I think I can really make a memorable presentation to a group of, let's say, corporate leaders who are looking at improving their personal leadership and the leadership of their company. What do? I sit down on my computer and I go, okay, leadership keynote speaker, where do we find the stages? Where do we find the events?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you dive in and jump in on Google and look at leadership speakers and Google those types of things, 2 things are going to happen. One, you're going to find a lot of opportunities. There are, 35,000 associates. If you go to directoryofassociations.com, that'll keep you busy for the rest of your life, just in associations, right? And speaking to associations is a great opportunity. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be in front of those companies and those organizations because those are the members of these associations. So if you have 400 people in the room, who represent your ideal clients, that's a win by any estimation, right? So, that's certainly great. But the second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a little depressed. You're going to look at these events and you're going to say, I'm not ready. The other speakers that they have are far more polished. They're put together. They're professional. Their website looks great. Their demo video looks great. Their fees are astronomical. I can't compete with that. Or their fees are really low and I can't compete with that. But you just feel like, you're not in that realm. So if you go right to the top of the booking chain, once again, those are the people who will book you only if they've seen you before. And they do sort of have a filter for the speaker. Remember, this is a high trust transaction. You're selling something that is really just based on your word, maybe some social proof, but it's an intangible thing. It's an experience. And it's not like a product that you can say, this is it, here it is, because it's something that's going to happen in the future. They don't know what you're going to say when you get up there. It's very high trust. And you're representing them. What you say in front of their members and their audiences reflects back on them. So it's very high trust. And again, at those tiers and at those levels, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not something that you can just dive in and jump in and start getting those gigs right away. Those gigs are great to get. They pay well. They put you in front of great audiences. But the other ones that you would want to start at probably are a little different. And this isn't something that you would find just from Googling. Majeed, what I'm looking at right now and what I pulled up on my screen is a document that I have on my computer called Opportunities for Low-Hanging Fruit Gigs. In the Get Speaking Gigs world, this is sort of what we call this type of gig, low-hanging fruit. Not the higher tiers, not the ones where you need the experience or the letters or the books or anything like that. People that will hire you sight unseen. And there's about, I think it's 127 different organizations that will hire you around the world. And when I got started, I'm going to tell you my story of how I got started. I had one.
The 127, what's that about?
It's 127 different organizations that'll hire you sight unseen. So these are the types of organizations that, I would recommend that you, when I say the best way to get started in speaking, the best way to get speaking gigs is to go out and get speaking gigs. These are the 127 organizations that you go to.
And is this a list that you compiled?
Correct. Yep.
Nice work. Nice work.
So all kinds of stuff. So the one that you mentioned, leadership. I'm an HR professional. I have a message for leaders. I'm going to scroll through here and I'm going to start at the top, which are, and would it be helpful if I shared my screen, Majeed, at all?
Sure,
is that a possibility?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know if that's
totally
going to
can.
translate to audio. Good. And we'll go here. So I've broken it down to things like civic groups, charitable organizations, small business and networking groups. So these are the types of things that you can Google, right? You can go there and Google small business and networking groups, human resource organizations. And you're going to find things like SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management.
Yeah.
Perfect audience to go to. On the local level, they will bring you in. All you need for this level of gig right here, this low hanging fruit, all you need is a compelling answer to the question, what do you speak about? A lot of these groups are desperate for speakers to come in because they don't pay.
What's the difference between a boring answer and a compelling answer? Let's say someone says, what do you speak about? I say leadership. They go,
right.
We already got someone talking about leadership.
We've heard that
before. How do you
before.
make that more compelling?
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I have a process that I take people through. I call it it ends up being a document, a clarity document. And there's a few steps and a few stages, but it's basically a handful of questions, maybe a couple of brainstorming exercises. But at the end, it spits out a formula. Take this piece from this document, plus this piece, plus this piece. That's your answer to the question, what do you speak about? One of the components, for example, is a great speech title. A great speech title consists of two parts. One, it is a problem that your target audience is experiencing. It's got to point to a pain. If you're not solving a pain, then you're not getting paid. I mean, there's really no reason to hire you unless you're solving a problem. There are two kinds of problems. There are business and bottom line problems, bringing in more sales, increasing leadership, innovation and creativity. These are things that affect business, right? And once again, whatever your audience is, look for those pain points and those problems and those challenges that they are already having. It cannot require an explanation. You cannot say, well, this is what you're struggling with because, well, this starts and then this is the result and then this happens and that's, no, they have to automatically, instantly feel that pain that you're alluding to. That's the first thing. A problem could be a business problem, or it could be an event problem. You know, our attendees are bored with some of our industry speakers who are just going over facts and data and projections and, you know, Q4 numbers and all this other stuff. So we need somebody to come in and engage our audience after lunch, right when food coma is setting in. And I'll tell you, Majeed, as a past entertainer, I'm brought in a lot simply because my speaking style when I'm on stage is engaging and entertaining and funny.
Yeah.
They say a lot too, if you want the money, then you got to be funny, right? I think I've heard you say that too, Majeed.
That's right. That's right.
So those are the two types of problems that you can solve, but a great speech title points to one of those problems. A pressing, urgent problem. The bigger the problem, the bigger your paycheck. Second thing that a great speech title needs, and this is where—
good one. That's a good one. The bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck.
Bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck. And the other thing too is when people are starting out, I usually recommend some counterintuitive advice. I say cast a wider net versus a narrow net. So my most booked speech is called The Magic of Human Connection, a Lost Art in a Digital World. So that immediately points to the problem that a lot of people are facing, be it in sales. People don't want to pick up the phone. They'd rather text or email or whatever. They're losing these elements of human connection along the transaction. They're losing trust and ultimately losing sales. So they're feeling that problem instinctively. Plus, they're also thinking personally, you know, their personal lives. Like, I'm so sick of everybody staring at a screen for 7 hours a day. This is crazy. My kids are just, I'm losing my kids to these devices. And so they immediately feel that pain already.
Yeah.
But the second piece of a really good title, and this is really hard to do, but it's really, I think, what differentiates a good speaker from a great speaker, or not, scratch that, a bookable speaker to a very highly in-demand bookable speaker. Okay, this is the difference. If you have the pain point, you can get to bookable, but you can't get to that elite, high-level, in-demand, people just foaming at the mouth trying to give you money. So to get there, you need to be able to solve that problem and promise a solution to that problem that is either counterintuitive, new and exciting, surprising, or just some kind of wrinkle or hook or difference, right? So I'm going to give you an example of another speech title.
Everything you ever learned about leadership is wrong.
Is wrong, right? It's things like that, you know, as long as it doesn't make the person think, I've heard that before, right? Okay. So there are some key words that'll kill this immediately. If you say the word communication, right? You're immediately killing, you probably cut your fee in half if you're a communication speaker. You've got to be a little more sexy than that, because they cannot think in their mind for a moment, I've heard that before. We know how to do that. We're familiar with that. We had somebody last year. You can't have that at all. It has to be lean in, interesting. Tell me more. What's that about? That's crazy how, you know, he solves this problem with this way. So, I mean, a lot of times I would come in and say, I'm a magician. There are secrets that I learned from the stage as a magician that are going to help you as an actuary. What? Right? Where does that come from? How does that play in? It's a curiosity factor. So another example of a great title that I came up with a coaching client, and we did 4 or 5 of these, and this is not the one he picked, so I'm comfortable sharing it. But basically, every coaching client, we spent a lot of time developing the offer. What is it that you're selling? What is it that you're putting out there? How are you going to frame it? How are you going to package it? Because it's not always the best speaker that gets the gig. It's the person who can present that speech in the best way that gets the gig. So this particular speech title was Why Helping Others is Really Helping Yourself. And that's a counterintuitive thing. It's age-old wisdom. It's not something that is earth-shattering, and it doesn't have to be. That's why I use this as an example, because it's just enough of a wrinkle that it points to the problem. People aren't helping each other. People aren't working together. There's infighting, there's bickering, there's cultural issues, there's interdepartmental friction and whatever. They're not helping each other. They're not working together within the organization. And if you can say—
let me pause there for a second. And you can stop sharing your screen if you like.
Oh, yes.
If we're done with that document. So the title of the speech could be something like, Why Helping Others is Really Helping Yourself, which is counterintuitive and surprising and interesting. And that same speaker, when asked, what do you speak on? The answer would be not helping others, or why helping others is actually helping yourself, what would you say would be sort of the answer to the question, what do you speak about? For
All right,
that
so let
versus
me
that
let me
title.
actually pull, because I still have that clarity document. I can pull that up and read his answer to that question. Again, this is a sort of discarded thing, but I've been using it as an example. What do you speak about? Well, the title of my talk is Why Helping Others at Work is Really Helping Yourself. Because you know how most organizations try to build their workforce by hiring top talent? Well, I believe the real way to assemble effective teams is to prioritize helpfulness over talent. So I've developed speaking, training, and coaching programs that show organizations how to hire and create employees who are helpful so that they can multiply their talent instead of just adding to it. So is that something that you think might be a fit for your next meeting?
Ooh, there we go.
Right?
That is poetry, my friend.
So, I mean, but it's again, it's the result of this formula. It's just plugging in the right things at the right times and sort of pushing those buttons within the minds of buyers that trigger the response of tell me more. Isn't that interesting? I'm curious. Not, I don't have an event coming, but let me tell you something. I know who does and who would love that message. So it's, again, packaging it in a way that people can take it in and understand it immediately, what you do as a speaker and what you can do from the stage.
Let's pause. And for the people who are thinking right now, take me through the formula. I want this formula. I want to do this stuff right now with you. Where do we send them to engage with you?
Yeah, best thing to do would be to go to getspeakinggigs.com. And all over that page, you're going to see an offer to download 44 organizations that'll hire. These are sort of the most common, most popular organizations that a lot of my clients will go to and have the most success with. So 44 out of that top, top 44 out of the 127. You'll get that. You'll get the process. I'll even send you email copy to send those and some other documents for tracking. Piece of cake. When I did this, the first time I did it, again, I only had one organization. 44 is far too many, right? But you'll pick one or two that really work. And that one organization turned into almost 50 gigs for me in the first 2 months, simply because, and I was doing them crazy, like 4, 5, 6 a week, just going bananas because I wanted that exposure.
And
but I also had a process.
What organization was that?
It was Rotary. Right. And a lot of people look down on Rotary, but I have a process. We call it step 5 in the Get Speaking Gigs world, where there are 39 things that I do at every single gig to proactively turn that into another gig. What you cannot do, and this is really important, I can't leave your audience believing that if you go out and get speaking gigs, they'll just automatically turn into paid speaking gigs. You've got to be extremely strategic and proactive, and there are things that you have to do to turn those opportunities into paychecks. So that's what I did. And that's what I really, and literally this is 10 years later now, and I'm still riding that wave of the initial push of getting out there, getting some exposure, but also basically it was like a little snowball. And that snowball started rolling down the hill and gathering momentum. And I had 50 of those snowballs. Some of them petered out, but some of them really, really exploded for me. So
amazing.
So that's that.
So how do we answer the question, what do you charge? What do you charge?
So I never answer that question. Yeah, I never answer that question.
The email says, we found you online. We want you to, we're considering other speakers. What's your fee?
Yeah, so I never answer that question over the phone. It's always, and I never post it on my website, okay? There are some bureaus and some listing, if you're on eSpeakers or whatever, you have to give that range, and you can put that in there, that's fine. But the best way for me to answer that question, I certainly want to I want to have a conversation with them. I want to find out what their needs are. And people do kind of understand, it depends, where is it? Is it in California? Is it in, Abu Dhabi? Is it, I need a little bit of detail about the event. And they'll say, oh, is this many people and that's all you need to know. It's like, well, no, right?
So your exact response when they say, hey, we want you to be our speaker, what's your fee? Your exact words are what?
You know what? I think it's a little bit different for every single situation. I don't love the idea of word for word scripts in my business. The reason being, my main topic is human connection, but I also talk a lot about the power of words and this and that. So I kind of like to craft that for the specific person. But the general idea is, I think a lot of other speakers do this. There's nothing revolutionary here. I'm going to need some more information on your event. I would love to have a conversation with you. This will allow me to submit a proposal to you with a few different options, and hopefully one of them is a good fit for you. So if they absolutely want to pin me down and say, we need a fee, we need a range, just give me a range, damn it. I'll send them to the bureau. I'll just send them right to the bureau. That's a situation I have. I know not everybody's represented, but I think it's a little bit better, a little bit easier to have someone else say, well, Mr. David's fee range is da, 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 da. And that's what the bureau does. The bureau literally will answer the question, fee range is this, boom, all in, and they'll just quote a fee, right? And they know that may change later, but they start with the highest fee and say, well, you need a fee? Great, here's a huge fee. And sometimes they come back and say, okay, right away. So, I mean, there's pluses and minuses, there's pros and cons. I really believe everybody has to come up with something that works not only for them, but also for that other person in that other situation, because every person is at a different stage of the speaker selection process. Every person may have a different position. Maybe they're not a decision maker. Maybe they're a gopher to just round up info. And so I really do believe every situation is different. I wish there was a magic phrase or a magic word for that question. But it's usually, let's have a conversation. And, we'll get on the phone and spend 10 or 15 minutes, no obligation. Certainly not going to try to sell you on anything. I'm not even going to quote your price at that point. I'm going to take that information, put it into a proposal. I'll email that to you and give you a few different options to choose from. That way they,
and
again,
what do
feel
those
like
options look like? It's like small, medium, large. So Keynote, and then Keynote Plus, breakout session. Like, what do those options look like?
Holy moly. So like I said, there's a lot of different things I can do at every event that are good for me. They're good for me. I want to give out an evaluation form on every chair. That's good for me because I'm getting information, I'm getting email addresses, I'm getting feedback, I'm getting referrals. My evaluation form over the years, it turned into one of my strongest marketing pieces. It's very little about getting feedback from the audience. There's some really cool ninja strategies that my guys, the Get Speaking Gigs world, they call it the $12,000 piece of paper. It just turns into gigs. So that helps me, but it also helps them. I'll be able to give them insight on their audience that they're not going to get otherwise. So I'm going to frame it as a service that I provide. I will do this. I'll print them. I'll put them on. I'll collect them. I'll assess the data and I'll communicate it back with you. I want to get them on the phone after the event. I want to do a post-event recap and talk about what are our next steps. I want to talk about referrals for my next client. So I want to get them on the phone after. That's a benefit for me, but I position it as a service to them. Once again, I'm going to give you the data that we've collected. We're going to, assess. Obviously, you'll have had time to receive some feedback and we can have great conversation about that event and how we can make it better next time. So that's the general strategy, but there are so many things, Majeed, that I can do. I can sell books, benefit to me, but also, hey, we can help the message stick. I can position it as a benefit to them. When I submit the proposal, it's broken down. And during that conversation, I'll say, will this be helpful to you? Will this be helpful to you? Oh my gosh, you would create a video, a hype video basically, and that we can send out via social media to all of our potential attendees so we can get butts in seats. Heck yeah, I want to be in front of all of your entire list and do a video and say, come see me speak. I'll absolutely do that. Oh, that's a benefit for me, but I position it as a benefit for them. So I ask them, would this be helpful? Would this be helpful? Would that be helpful? And they're saying, yes, absolutely. This one, no, that's not a fit for our event. We don't have a cocktail hour or whatever. So let's do this. Let's do that instead. And then I just give that as options to them. These are all the things that you want, $15,000 all in. I don't itemize it. It's just package A, everything, 15 grand. Package B, fewer things, lower number, right? And then package C, even fewer things, maybe just the speech, the plain vanilla package, and we'll have that as a lower rate as well. We'll get between that $10,000 to $15,000 range. So it might be 15,000, 12,500, and 10 might be simple as that. But again, depending on the situation, depending on how badly they wanted those things on the call, we itemize things a little differently.
So you send a proposal with options, and then how do you follow up to close? Do you have that appointment already scheduled?
Yeah, never, ever, ever leave a conversation without either a yes, a no, or a booking on the calendar, right? So, so that email will be sent, again, and we'll set up a time, on that first call. I'll say, okay, I'm going to send you this email. As soon as we get off the phone, I'll put something together. You'll have it by the end of the day. Let's say we get together in 3 days. Does that work with meeting schedules and this and that? Is it too late? Is that a good time for us to get back and talk again? So absolutely a yes, a no, or an appointment every time.
And then do you do a pay half now, half on delivery, or a
100% upfront?
100% up?
100% upfront. I, again, position it as a benefit. Cut one check. It's a little easier, a little less, stuff to deal with. One check in advance, done, easy.
One less thing to worry about.
Yeah, very few people have a problem with that. What I don't like is showing up at the event, and having to deal with money in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to collect a check at the event. Absolutely not. I used to do that as a magician, and it just was different. When I'm there as the speaker, I want to be the person who is the speaker. I want to sort of keep the pain of paying out of that event. When you pay for a vacation in advance, you enjoy that vacation more than if you have to pay for it. Like an all-inclusive event is great, but if you're paying for food the whole vacation, same amount of money, different pay time, more enjoyable or less enjoyable. And I always want a fantastic experience and impression, day of event. So I remove any payment, certainly day of, or even having to chase people down after the event. Hey, what about the balance? Come on now. So all up front.
Come on now. Papa needs his money. Okay. The contract. What's the biggest mistake you've personally made, or you help other people avoid when it comes to the contract?
That's a good question. Tough to point to anything in particular. Very early on, like I said, I was signed to a bureau, so I had, they handle all the paperwork. It's really a great setup. And again, I know not everybody's in that situation, but I would say I don't really have a horror story, because things have been taken care of pretty quickly for a lot of reasons. And, minor things like, hey, I really want to copy that video, put it in the contract. Hey, I would love a testimonial letter or a testimonial video or a review, positive or negative, put that in the contract. I'd love referrals, put it in the contract. They may pull it out. They may, nitpick about it, but those are the types of things that, you've got to, the paycheck from your gig is not the most important piece. Every gig most of the time, right, would happily trade the paycheck for the opportunity that audience presents you for future paychecks. Yeah. So, leveraging every gig is so important, and using the contract as a way to not to say you are contractually obligated, just to, remind people and say, hey, we got this situation that we got to wrap up here. And, just a way to reintroduce a conversation that may, in other cases, have been closed. So
one of the things people ask me about is, what do you do if you have to cancel or they cancel you? Do you offer them a refund? Do you do a partial refund? Personally, what I recommend is I say, listen, in the unlikely event, then this is what goes in my contract. In the unlikely event that either party needs to cancel, the full fee will be credited towards a future service. Okay. What do you do?
So this has happened once in my career. I didn't cancel. I've never missed an event. Knock on wood, fingers crossed, whatever you want to call it. I definitely, show must go on no matter what. But the one time that it's happened where an event canceled, they paid me half my fee because it was within the month, right? So it didn't give us a lot of time. So they paid half my fee and rebooked me and paid me my full fee again. So I, earned a few grand for doing nothing. And then they ended up booking me again at my full fee. So that's how that was handled. Right. But again,
now, question for you about the 100% attendance rate. You've never missed your speech. And you and I, we have a shared history. We both used to be like the traveling corporate trainers. You did Skill Path, right?
It was Fred Pryor. Yep. But
Fred Pryor.
Pretty much the same deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did Learning Tree. And one of the policies that my company had was, you can't book the flight that's the last flight out. You have to book the second to last flight out latest, because that reduces your risk of being stuck at the airport with the last flight out canceled.
Right.
And so my question to you is, what sort of policies have you put in place to ensure that you don't miss any speeches?
Yeah, I like that. I like, I prefer direct flights. I mean, again, I have a travel agent who sort of books all this as well. So there's a few she just automatically, will eliminate a lot of these issues. But also because I'm doing so many things at the event that happen before I speak, that happen after I speak, I never, ever want to be the person who shows up, runs to the stage, does my speech, runs off, gets on the next plane. So I'm very conscious about choosing bookings. And this is sometimes a difficult decision that may create conflict. And, I think I could squeeze that in there. Well, let's play it safe. All right. So playing it safe is policy number one. Policy number two is direct flights, eliminate any layover issues, extra delays. Anytime you multiply the flights, you're multiplying your opportunities for a mess. The other thing is, like you said, never the last flight. Hopefully there's options. There was one time all flights canceled, just not getting to the city. Wasn't going to happen. Fortunately, I was able to rent a car and drive. It was about an 8.5-hour drive. It was ridiculous. But I just drove through the night. You don't mess around. You get to that gig. So it was due to snow. I think the gig was in Michigan or no, that was a Pittsburgh gig. But anyway, it was driving was a mess. Took forever to get there. But that was an option simply because I didn't book the flight that would get me there day of,
Right.
or a few hours before the gig. That's foolish. So I think prevention is worth, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure here. And I think that's a great question. Sure, there's more I could do, but I think that has worked for me. So far, so good.
Good. I want to ask you about your book, Magic Words. You got a traditional publishing deal with Penguin Random House publisher.
Right.
How did you do that? And what was the impact of having a mainstream publisher
Sure.
publish your book in terms of how that impacted your speaking business?
Cool. So magician, no prior writing experience really to speak of, nothing published, so first time author. And I just, had this idea. I'd submitted a few books in the past that just absolutely flopped. One of them sold, I published it on my own and it sold something like 23,000 copies in the first week, which is that's like New York Times best-selling level. It was crazy. Still, no publishers wanted it. It was just, so a lot of swings and misses. And, I certainly can understand that. But for Magic Words, I was much more strategic. And I think that's the name of the game. Strategy, plan, intention, not just accidental or willy-nilly, like, let me try submitting this book. Let me try this thing. Like being very strategic about it. So part of that strategy was finding the right literary agent. I knew I wasn't going to do it on my own. You need a lit agent. You got to go that way. So what I did was I looked in the back of books that I respect, books that I sort of wanted it to be similar to, the concept that I had was sort of similar to that. And I looked in the acknowledgement section and they always thank their agent. So
Nice.
I started looking up agents and finding literary agents, basically the agents that were publishing the exact type of book that I wanted to publish. This is really important. Publishing is very specific. There are people who just operate in this lane and nothing else, and people who operate in this lane and nothing else. So you've got to find that person who does the book that you want to write and publish. I came up with a list, and I found some directories online too. So I was able to sort of Google sleuth my way to a list of about 40 different literary agents. One at a time, I emailed them a personal email, starting with my top choice and going down the list. I got exactly one response. And it was from my top choice.
Wow.
And the reason it was my top choice was because he was such a great fit. And once again, that's the lesson. That's the takeaway. Don't spray and pray. Target. Find that one person who would absolutely be your spirit animal of the publishing world. That person that is absolutely going to just love to hear from you. I mean, we're talking down to the fact that he was from my hometown. He enjoyed the same hobbies that I enjoyed. Wow. And again, published books by my heroes and, well respected, all those things. He just was checked all the boxes. And I got a response right away. You will know quickly, right? If it's a yes. If it's a no, they may not respond or they may take forever to respond. But the yeses are usually pretty quick. And he was sort of recruiting me. He's like, yeah, I know you got to talk to all these other people. And I'm like, oh, wow. That's what you think. So I did, I gave it a day. And then I called him back and I said, send me the contract. Let's sign it. And then he worked with me on the proposal because he knows the industry, and the proposal that I had sent him was conceptually good, but the execution wasn't so great. Now, here's another huge takeaway. He focused me on creating a great marketing plan for the book.
Right.
That's what gets book deals, you know. And for me, I had over 100 speaking dates on the calendar in the previous year. So he said, let's itemize those. How many people were in the audience? What was the audience type? What city was it in? Show your speaking tour. That's what got me the book deal. Once again, a lot of it starts with getting the speaking gigs. Not only that, but I wrote this book from the stage, essentially. Like the concepts and the ideas came from speaking and working through that material. So those are the main takeaways and lessons, I think, from that story.
And how impactful has having a book been on your ability to land speaking engagements?
It's before and after.
How it impacted your fee and everything?
Yeah, it's a total line in the sand, a before and after, a night and day. You know, it really opened a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Once again, I won't traditionally publish again unless something really compelling comes along. But the notch is in the belt, and the doors have opened. And I recommend, you know, anybody who wants to, you know, keynote and do these things, it really does help. Certainly with fee level. But I think, you know, there are things that can help you get gigs, and there are things that can help your fee go up. And those things are very often separate things. Having a book does kind of widen the net. People are out there reading it and saying, oh, this is a great message. We need our people to hear this. You know, so that is a small piece of it. The bigger piece is the fee level increase. So
very good.
And the doors that open.
Tim, David, you are a wealth of wisdom. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your insights. GetSpeakingGigs.com is the website. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
You know, I think, you know, once again, the biggest frustration is that worst piece of advice. And I'm going to go back to that. Decide that you want to be a speaker, and then do it. Find those channels, take the stairs, right? Don't try to jump to that next level. Just take the stairs, and you don't have to wait forever. You don't have to pay your dues. You can start marching forward today and be on stages by next month. Because some of these things, you know, you get the gig today and then it's not until 3 weeks from now. That's fine. Work the system, be proactive, be strategic, be intelligent, be intentional, and use that gig as leverage. That is a snowball that's waiting to roll down a hill, and don't waste it.
Amazing. Don't just wait and say it takes time. Why don't you start, but take the stairs?
Yeah, take the stairs.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Tim, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast, and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply, and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.